If we look at motivation, there's two types. Very, very simple. There's internal and external, intrinsic or extrinsic. The internally driven salesperson will actually automatically get up in the morning and be quite motivated to do what he's got to do without someone nagging him to do it. An externally driven, motivated salesperson will often display a repetitive pattern of behavior, which is his boss will say, have you done your phone calls? I mean, some types of external motivation is really, really powerful. Example, a mortgage. You're motivated, but here's the interesting thing. It depends on the stress response to that motivation. Certain types of stress acts as a catalyst to keep you continually fired up, and certain types of stress overwhelms you where you actually shut down and you go into dysfunctional mode and you go, I can't do this.
You're listening to Elevate, the official podcast of Elite Agent magazine for real estate industry sales professionals, property managers, and leaders. Each episode, we bring you behind-the-scenes coaching, news analysis, exclusive interviews, technology, and more to help you list more, sell more, and elevate your results. To subscribe to the magazine, visit eliteagent.com.au/subscribe.
Hey, Samantha McLean from Elite Agent. The human brain is a pretty interesting topic. You get your mind right and momentum and success seem easy. You get it wrong and your goals could seem scary and far, far away. My guest this week is mindset coach Pancho Mehrotra, a semi-regular in the magazine who joins me to break down some of the neuroscience behind successful goal setting and decision-making, motivation, and the curious reasons all the top agents create enough positive stress in their ecosystem to help them get the big numbers and get them to their chosen destinations. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Pancho Mehrotra.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
It's good to see you again. Actually, I should have said welcome back to the podcast because this is your second time.
That's the second time. I'm used to the rigors.
And you've become quite a regular in the magazine over the last 12 months with your various articles on mindset and performance. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a couple of those articles that have been popular over the last year, particularly goal setting. So some people love it and other people can't stand it. I mean, it's very difficult for some people to put stakes in the ground and set goals. Why is that?
It's primarily an avoidance strategy. Sometimes it's confronting the thing that you don't want to confront. You actually have to make a decision. And the frightening thing for many, many people I've observed in my training sessions is that the moment they actually pick up a pen, they start to think. And if they put a commitment down on paper, that can tend to frighten a lot of people. So it's often that commitment is the thing that frightens us, because then what we're doing and putting this information down on paper, are we going to actually stick to it?
Well, we were in Boston for NAR, as you know, and we listened to Mel Robbins, who is no relation to Tony Robbins, obviously, but she's got that 5-second rule. And she basically said that if you take too long to think about what it is you're going to do or how you're going to do it, then your brain will go through all different sorts of motions to talk you out of it.
So that is that article I wrote about cognitive dissonance. And often, I would say close to 90% of the planet actually lives this way. They want to make a decision, they look this way, they look that way, and at the end they choose the one that they feel creates the less pain in themselves. And the primary reason that occurs is because it challenges our own self-concept and who we are. So let me choose an alternative that doesn't make me fearful of myself. And often you'll find that, you know, when they talk about the top 2 or 3%, they can understand this fear and they can actually use it in a very, very positive manner to create some form of action where they don't get actually handcuffed by that emotion. What I call a victim of the emotion or an emotional hostage.
Yeah.
And cognitive dissonance, you have very low awareness when this actually kicks in. So you don't even know you're doing it.
So they're big words and I had to look them up when you first mentioned it to me. So explain cognitive dissonance to me like I'm 7.
Okay. You want to do something and you've got 2 alternatives. Let's talk about football, right? You've got a family. It's Sunday. You want to go to the football match, but also say you have to go to church and you go, well, God won't mind me if I don't go to church today. You know, he forgives all. So I'll just go to the football match
Yeah.
And then I'll beg for his forgiveness and everything will be okay. So what you've done is you've justified your own reason for going to the football match and saying, God forgives all. So when you make a decision about something, it has a huge impact on who you actually are. And you really don't want that challenged. That's why so many people struggle to learn something new. They want the same old stuff. They watch the same old movies because they know what's going to happen. It's this immediate gratification that kicks in of knowing what's going to happen before it happens.
So if we're faced with a couple of choices, we're going to take the one that we like the best, that causes us the least pain.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But that's not necessarily what's good for us.
No.
We better go to church.
Yeah. And ask for some help from the Almighty and go, help me make better decisions in my life. And actually, at the end of the day, life is all about making the right decisions. And primarily when people's self-concepts are challenged, they revert back to their old behaviors because, hey, I just don't want to be challenged. And that's why they struggle to learn, struggle to change. And this is a problem, not only in this industry, but every industry. And that's why very, very few people actually get to the top.
Yeah. Is this why people often say, get comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah.
It's a bit of it's hard though, isn't it?
It's very, very hard.
So let's say I haven't had the best year in 2018 and I do want to make change for 2019, like I want to get off on the right foot. How do I get past my fear
of change
or of failure? So I remember when I read your article, half the time when people think about planning goals, often they don't want to write it down. And I know I've been guilty of this before, is what if I don't succeed? Yeah.
Well, I call it the theory of self. It's a challenge for many, many people to find that driving reason why they want to, a key thing. Why do you want to get up in the morning in the first place? It's a really key question to ask yourself before you even think about goals.
But it's funny, isn't it, that we don't naturally as humans think to ourselves, well, like I'm going to sleep through the alarm. Yeah. I'm going to be late for work. Yes. I'm going to fluff around on social media. Yeah. Like that's not how we think. Yes. We think I'm going to bounce out of bed. Yeah. I'm going to get in the office. Yeah. I'm going to go to the gym. Yeah. I'm going to make 20 calls. Yes. So we don't set out to sabotage ourselves. Yes. And yet somehow
we do.
How?
It's actually quite interesting when I ask people about what they want in life, they're so quickly to tell me what they don't want. And it's like they know it like the back of their hand. So one of the key things is, why is it that we know what we don't want so much better than what we do want? It's about, we know the pain. We know it so well, and we want to avoid that pain. But the funny thing is, I've often
so we are actually comfortable being uncomfortable.
To a certain extent. It's just the wrong
just
way.
Not really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I wrote about 3 types of goals: outcome goals, performance goals, and process goals. I've written a lot of things about sports and the All Blacks and tennis, and you'll find that all the top teams, all the top players will always say, we follow our processes, because the process is something that you have a 100% control over. The outcome, very little. And the outcome is the end result. It's about how you rate yourself to your competition. It's your primary driver. But if that's all you focus on, it's like the salesperson goes, I need to make the sale. I need. You've been around needy people?
Yes, I have.
How do you think that translates into a behavior when you are prospecting on the phone? How about when you are meeting the client? You forget all the process and you come from self. And that is a problem in sales, or in life in general. When you come from me, myself, and I, you lose that sense of contribution. So whenever you feel yourself, and everyone goes up and down, but it's how quickly do you turn that downtime up? So it's your reaction to downtime that matters. I've talked about pressure, and life is all about handling pressure.
There was that Billie Jean King quote.
Pressure is a privilege.
And
it's a brilliant quote. And if you live by that quote, you'll actually welcome it. The more you have it, the better you will actually get at handling it. And so a lot of people avoid the first stage, which is, hey, what do I want this goal in the first place?
Well, that opens up another can of worms, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
But you need that clarity of purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so many times I've seen so many people who go down a path of going after a goal, and after a day, a week,
Did
a month.
Did you say a girl or a goal then?
Goal. A girl could be the goal as well. Well, it depends what your outcomes are. But I've often seen people go after a goal after a month, and then they figure out that they don't actually want it. And then they waste time, money, emotional energy, and they sink deeper and deeper. Before you actually go after a goal, you actually have to take a bit of a self-inventory. And you go, what have I done this year? What's worked and what's not worked? And what do I have to do to improve that? Before you even think about any kind of goal, you need to take some self-introspection and go, what has actually happened? And we're too quick to rush into certain things.
Do you think sometimes we're too quick to also make other people's goals our own?
Yes. And we often get dictated.
A lot of people listening to this will have seen many a, in inverted commas, $1 million agent take stage at events and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I've heard it 1,000,000 times myself, pardon the pun.
Yes.
How do we stop other people's goals by default becoming our own?
It really comes down to the reasons why. And you really have to explore that. And it's a challenging thing for many, many people to actually sit down and go, okay, so what do I want to earn that kind of money? And when I ask people that, I would say 99% of the time, it's never the money. It's funny that. You always think it's the money, but there's an underlying reason that you have to go dig deep. Often, sometimes I will ask people to give me 20 reasons, and they'll struggle after the first 5. And I go, it's not happening.
So if I've got a goal in my head and I can't sit there and jot down 20 reasons why I want that goal, it's probably not my goal. Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like you're our Oprah, Pancho.
Well, the thing is, I've spent so much time with people, not only in this industry, but other industries. And you'll find that the top guys tend to really know why they do their jobs in the first place. It's usually never about the money. It's about something else. Money is close to it, especially if we're talking about sales. But I do a lot of this work with leaders. And you'll find these leaders are very, very comfortable from a monetary point of view, but something else drives them. You think about Federer, Djokovic, Nadal. These people are extremely wealthy. You know, their net worth is probably $300-400 million each of them.
So they don't need more money.
They don't need the money. But why do they continue to compete? And you think about Federer at 37, still competing, top 3 in the world, and then you look at all the younger players who should be able to beat him, and you start to think about 3 aspects of a goal, which is not only the psychology of it, the mindset, but there's also strategy and execution. So a lot of people get highly hyped up from a training session, and the dopamine levels are going through the roof, the serotonin, they go hyped up and they go, yeah, we're going to kill it. And within 1 hour, they're down.
Sounds like a sugar crash.
It is. It's like, give me that sugar pill and, hey, man, tell me what I need to know. Tell me what I want to hear, that I can become that $1 million agent. And I've never found that sessions where there's a huge amount of energy going up and a lot of excitement is sustainable over the long term. Those kind of speeches whereby you pick up your team with, a passionate speech really works. I've been around too many professional athletes. Most of them are very, very introspective about it. They don't actually need someone revving them up. If you do need someone to rev you up, generally sometimes there is a problem there. Because if we look at motivation, there's 2 types. Very, very simple. There's internal and external, intrinsic or extrinsic. The internally driven salesperson will actually automatically get up in the morning and be quite motivated to do what he's got to do without someone nagging him to do it. An externally driven, motivated salesperson will often display a repetitive pattern of behavior, which is his boss will say, have you done your phone calls? Have you done your paperwork? It's like an errant child who won't clean his room. I mean, some types of external motivation is really, really powerful. Example, a mortgage. You're motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the interesting thing. It depends on the stress response to that motivation. You definitely need stress around goals, but it's the type of stress that You have to be concerned about certain types of stress acts as a catalyst to keep you continually fired up, and certain types of stress overwhelms you where you actually shut down and you go into dysfunctional mode and you go, I can't do this.
So that's an interesting point, because you did use the example of setting a goal around a holiday versus setting a goal around an achievement or a business achievement or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can remember the story went something like, we don't mind setting goals around holidays because in our minds, a holiday is going to be fabulous, even if it happens that when we finally get on this holiday, it could rain for 12 months and we could get a case of barley belly and
whatever.
all of those terrible things, all of that could happen.
Yeah.
But we don't think that way when we're planning the
We
holiday.
have an expectation.
Whereas when we're thinking about setting business goals or personal goals, we automatically go into that, we think the worst.
Yes.
Why is that? And how can we put the holiday planning mentality into our business goals so it becomes a little bit more fun?
That definitely can be done. That is a very, very deep topic.
Uh-oh. I've just opened Pandora's box.
It's a very, very deep topic in that you actually have to break down that person's total experience around the holiday and see what strategies they're actually using. So, for example, you asked a really good question there,
Thank
Sam,
you.
which is really, really good, because when you examine the strategies that you have when you are looking to book a holiday, you definitely have a purpose. You want that holiday. It's very, very specific. You're planning 6 months ahead. You're looking at budgets. In your mind, you're already there. What I call the precedent of, I'm going to be in Bali in 6 months' time. I've got this hotel booked. I've checked it out on the internet. It's going to cost me this much. I'm going to take my family and friends. I can already dream about having
It's going to be so good.
cocktails there.
Start the diet now.
Yeah. Let me go to the gym and sharpen myself up so I look really, really cool with the pool.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm already there. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you examine the strategy of actually goal setting around a holiday, you know it so intuitively but well. But the first thing is you have a purpose for going on the holiday. And you might be, gee, I really need a break.
Yeah.
I just need some time out. And so there's a bit of urgency. So the emotion is the urgency, right? When it talks about stress, that's the right type of stress. That's the right type of stress that acts as a catalyst for you to take action that is very much around being proactive. Here's the interesting thing. Okay, we looked at outcome, we looked at performance, and looked at process. The outcome has already been decided. I want a holiday. The performance is how I'm going to do the search. The process is how am I going to pay for it? How am I going to do all that? You're gone within seconds from outcome to process. There's no anxiety. Now, I say that most people, when they look at their goals in life, and I always make people address 5 key areas in their life, not just business goals, because if I have someone who's just looking at business goals, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to get them. There's something missing. We are the sum of all our parts. It might not be a priority, but it needs to be thought of. Because I've often said that things that aren't addressed will often force you to address them at the worst time.
I know that from 2018, from losing my voice and
Losing your voice.
all sorts of other things, yeah.
There is a reason why that happens. You've got to look at what I call theory of self. Look at yourself. And you actually need someone to explain to you, you've got to go, but why the hell do you want that in the first place? And to challenge you on that. The most important thing is these goals do need to be quite abstract when you first look at them. And they need to come down to a microscopic level because the variables matter. And then when you look at the variables become your processes.
So it's a matter of actually going through and plotting these steps no matter what goal it is.
Yes.
And just to kind of try and, I guess, summarize what you're saying is to try and replace that thinking of feeling like it's going to be bad with, okay, this is a big goal, but it's going to be good.
Yeah. And often when people get into overwhelm about a goal is because they're just fixated on the big picture. They never seem to be able to break it down into little bits. And that creates a lot of anxiety. When you've got little bits, you've got control over those little bits. And people are all about control. And so when you can control that little bit, you can control the next little bit, and the next little bit, and the next little bit. And suddenly you've got momentum. And it's very, very interesting because when you look at the intensity of energy around a goal, you have to be so aware of that intensity, because sometimes it wanes, because we can never be always up. That's not reality. And people think, all these top agents are up.
It's like the market.
Yeah. It's not that you're not going to come down. It really comes down to your reactions to when it does go bad. And I've often said, you need to be prepared for that. And one of the key things is I always get people to write down, what are the obstacles? So let's have a look at the reality of the goal. What are the obstacles to that goal? Write them down. You need to get your pen and write the obstacles. And one of the key things I often find in the training session is I get close to 70% of answers where people put down themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We get in the way of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's
procrastination, avoidance, fear, anxiety, worry. Is interesting when you get that, I suppose, that truth that comes out, and it does actually help you to go, this is actually the reality of this goal. I always force people to go, okay, any kind of significant goal that you have, you are going to need help. You are going to need someone. I've had so many people who have these very strong egos and say, oh, no, I can do it all by myself. And I'm going to say, well, geez, that's a lot of wasted time.
That's interesting. Okay, so let's summarize this. If you want to be successful in setting goals this year, number one, don't make someone else's goal your goal just for the sake of it.
Yep.
Number two, write the goal down.
Yep.
Number three, write down the steps to get to your goal and take action.
Yep.
And number four, don't worry about it if it's in the future. Focus on right now.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a fascinating chat as always. So will you come back and have another chat to us again later in the year, and let's see how we're all going with our goals?
Yeah, well, it'll be good to have a check-up on that.
Absolutely. Pancho Mehrotra, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sam.
To subscribe to the magazine, visit eliteagent.com.au/subscribe.